welcome to the Friendly Jodies podcast.
Yeah.
I hope everyone is doing exceptionally well.
So do I.
Particularly our friends at Pilot,
We'll discuss them later.
who have sponsored this episode, and we'll discuss them later. Okay, the first segment, Jordan. Yeah. Do you want to start off with the greens?
Okay.
No?
I mean, I've got no objection to that.
All right, okay, maybe we won't do that then. Let's
Okay.
we should we start off with that, or should we start off with Israel versus Lebanon?
Both light topics.
Light topics.
Really easing him in this week, aren't we? Yeah, let's start with the easier one, Lebanon.
Okay. I'll do that.
Yeah. Look, I am interested in this because I hear about these things out there,
Okay,
but I don't watch the news. So you're my news.
but
so.
before we get into it, I just want to let you know that just today, the federal police are investigating people that have expressed support towards Hezbollah by raising
Jesus.
Hezbollah flags at rallies, which is illegal because Hezbollah is a prescribed terrorist organization. So now that I have said this, we all know
Put your flag away.
what our boundaries are. Make sure your flag is hidden. But okay, let's start. So Hezbollah.
So much
Getting
censorship.
censored already.
Yeah.
Let me just.
Thank you very much, misinformation, Bill.
I'm sure everyone knows the background to it, but I'll quickly do a background. So Hezbollah is a militant organization that is based in south of Lebanon, the area that borders Israel. This is an organization that's a Shia militant organization. Hezbollah means Army of God. They
Dang.
were.
Which one's the good Muslims again? Sunni or Shia?
This is what I'm saying. Like, what do you mean?
You know what I mean.
I don't.
Oh, is this an up late podcast discussion? Is
They're
it?
the good ones.
Well, make sure you sign up and we'll
Yeah,
discover
this
which
is
one are the good Muslims.
They after the Iranian Revolution, on similar themes and organization.
Yeah, okay, so Iran is Sunni or Shia?
Shia.
They're Shia.
Shia.
Yeah.
And they're also Shia.
Yeah.
So they established a militant organization that was the purpose was initially to free up some of the areas in Lebanon that Israel had occupied, which in the mid 2000s they successfully did so.
Yeah.
And then they formed a base in south of Lebanon, where they essentially have a state within a state kind of situation, and they're also
Like
members.
Spain and Cappadocia or whatever it's called.
Yeah,
Catalan?
Catalan.
Catalan, yeah, it's
Like
similar,
that.
but way
Cappadocia.
more guns. So
Yeah.
and they share power with the Lebanese center government, so they have a few parliamentarians in parliament as well. Anyways, that was the sort of introduction to them. So when Israel launched its offensive in Gaza after October 7, Hezbollah started firing rockets, which they sourced from Iran, at Israel in the border towns that neighbored Lebanon, saying that we will continue this until you stop your offensive in Gaza. Anyway, so this was going on. Israelis are in no mood to stop Gaza offensive, and they also wanted to ensure that these rockets that were damaging their populations didn't do so. So they moved about 50 to 60,000 Israelis from those border towns into, so they essentially displaced them. And now they want those people to go back, but they can't go back until Gaza offensive is over, because Hezbollah wouldn't stop firing rockets until the Gaza offensive is over. They don't want to stop the Gaza offensive. So now they're going to take out Lebanon as well. So they started aerial bombarding Lebanon.
Shit.
Like
Really?
insane amounts of aerial bombardment.
Like all of Lebanon.
Yeah, well, not all of Lebanon, obviously, but like the centers where they think Hezbollah commanders and all of them are. And then like certainly the border areas for sure, where the rockets were being fired from, all the way into Beirut. Nasrallah, who was the guy that you just looked up, he was the leader of Hezbollah. He recently got assassinated by Israel in a crazy way too, because he was in a bunker. Bunkers are supposed to protect you from nuclear bombs.
Oh my God.
But the U.S. has developed these insane weapons that are called the bunker destroyers.
What?
They're thousands of tons.
Oh my God.
So they deployed those bunker bombs on the bunker of Nasrallah, killing Nasrallah, but also literally destroying 4 to 5 buildings that were in the vicinity of...
Right.
It's like 9/11 times 4. Just to get rid of one guy. Anyways, that's just the context of it.
Dang.
So now, this is the situation. The thing is, for Hezbollah to get some kind of advantage against Israel, they would need Israel to occupy Lebanon so that they could launch a guerrilla war against them. They're really good in guerrilla wars. That's how they kicked Israel out in the mid-2000s in the first place.
Right.
So now that's the game. So the game is that Israel is saying that they're preparing for a ground invasion, and Hezbollah's top commanders have recently been assassinated. So there's a bit of a confusion as to how things are going to work out. And Israel is taking full advantage of this confusion by gaining more territory. Now, this is...
Surely Israel is really militarily spent.
Well, look, they have a lot of arsenal. They've been preparing for this.
But like in terms of troops,
well,
they've got to be running thin.
No, because right now, a lot of their strategy is to bombard aerially, which you don't need a lot of troops for. If they start occupying Lebanon, that's when the troop commitment will happen. But here's the thing. This is what I recently read, and this was interesting because I think not a lot of people have reported this. Israeli government is afraid of that guerrilla war that's going to happen if they occupy Lebanon. Also, the U.S. government, Western forces, including our government, has told Israel not to occupy Lebanon. They're trying to de-escalate the thing, not increase it further. Israel is in no mood to de-escalate. They think of this as a golden opportunity to restack the cards. Because from their perspective, for a second, think of it from their perspective, like their leaders. They were saying that Iran has deployed their proxies all around us. So you have Hezbollah on one end, on one side of the border. You have Houthis, which launch rockets, but also have access to choke points that can cripple their trade. Then you have Iran itself. So they were like cornered from all over. They're powerful, but they were cornered. And Israel now looks at this opportunity, October 7th. I don't want to, I'm not saying that Israeli government likes October 7th by any means. They don't want their own people to be killed. But in hindsight, there'd be a lot of people that'd be thanking October 7th because this gives them the opportunity to restack the whole game. So now they're like, we've already taken a lot of PR hit. So we may as well go into Lebanon and destroy Hezbollah as well. Will they be able to do it is a completely different thing. By getting rid of the leader doesn't necessarily mean that Hezbollah is decapitated by any means.
Now, what does this look like for the central government of Lebanon?
A really awkward position. They obviously don't want it, but
at the same time, surely there'd be people in the Lebanese government thinking, oh my God, we can get rid of these cunts.
Some might be, but most of them aren't. Because even Lebanon, so Hezbollah is constantly fighting Israel for the cause of Palestine. The Lebanese center isn't necessarily doing that, but they have their sympathies with the Palestinians. So when Beirut gets bombed, the population doesn't go, oh my God, Hezbollah, why did you do this? They say Israeli, they're calling it the Zionist empire.
But what I'm asking is the central government of Lebanon controlled to an extent by Hezbollah?
Yeah.
So
really?
They would find
not controlled, but they have a very, very powerful lobby group.
Oh, shit.
A very powerful lobby group in there. So this must be a thorn in the side of the Lebanese central government.
Some of them. Some of them might have their sympathies with Hezbollah.
Yes.
Because at
some
the end
of
of
them
the
might
day,
have their sympathies with it, but generally, would they be kind of impeding governing for this central government?
Imagine this. We live in New South Wales. Queensland is constantly fighting with China, right? For whatever reason. Now, we don't like China either.
Don't have to imagine it.
We don't like
They're
China.
on the front line.
We don't like China either, but we're constantly saying to Queensland, stop attacking China because they'll come and attack us. Stop it. Queensland doesn't listen to us, but they're powerful and they're still part of our country and they're fellow Australians. We have to entertain them to what extent. And at some point, China decides to attack Queensland and New South Wales. Now, at that point, are we thinking, fuck Queensland, we told you this? Or are we thinking, look, we'll settle this later, but right now China is attacking our country, so we need to get together and fight them?
That's what I'm wondering. Are they thinking that, or are they thinking, oh, they'll get rid of Hezbollah, and then after that, we can govern the country as a whole.
Some might be, but I think most Lebanese people aren't thinking that.
The people aren't. It's
Yeah.
the government.
I don't think they're thinking that at the moment.
Mm.
Because they don't want to get rid of like a big part of their own country.
Mm.
Is-
But that's the whole thing. I'm not imagining that Israel wants to permanently occupy a chunk of
Well,
Lebanon.
what Israel is doing, so this is a really interesting strategy. This is something that I've read in reports. I'm not even sure if this is exactly true. But because Israel knows that occupying Lebanon will lead to a guerrilla warfare that might not end well for them, they've employed this strategy where they're going to go into bursts into Lebanese territory with their soldiers, shoot up a bunch of people, create havoc, and then immediately retreat back to the border. And they're going to constantly do this. They say that by employing this strategy, we minimize the loss of civilian lives because we're not occupying the area, but it also allows us to create such uncertainty in those areas that Hezbollah isn't able to entrench themselves into the area and essentially set themselves up for the guerrilla warfare. And they're saying we're going to do this so often that Hezbollah or any Lebanese authority won't be able to take control of the area, and we'll be able to create a buffer zone. A buffer zone is that wherever the Israeli towns end, you need a massive space in between them and the first population center of Lebanon so that the rockets don't reach all the way. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Now, this strategy is new. It hasn't been employed. This is something that they're also saying to convince the Western forces, because this will give Western countries an excuse to say, well, they're not occupying Lebanon because they keep drifting back to their border. But in effect, it will have the same effect, which is that in that area where they keep coming and going, they're going to have the writ. Now, the jury is out whether they'll be able to do
new
this.
strategy. It's a very old strategy.
Yeah, I guess it is, but they're employing it for the first time, I guess.
They're employing it for the first time. But the thing is, I can't imagine that Israel would ever have had the long-term strategy of let's occupy all of this area around Israel and then have this sort of central Israel and then the rest of it be controlled by us. I think that they would probably just want that. They just want a dead zone
Yeah.
in between them and Israel.
Yeah, for sure.
Ideally.
And they also, not only that, but they have a greater ambition too. They certainly want that. Those are the things they're comfortable to say. But what they're also not comfortable to say is that they don't want any hostile government in their neighborhood. They want to essentially take de facto control of the Middle East. And the Arab, like Saudi Arabia, Egypt, all the friendly nations, which essentially are also controlled by the US, they're tolerable. There's this new talk about the new Zionist empire, which is that Israel is no longer just a nation state, but it is becoming an empire that will have control over vast expanses of the Middle East.
Yeah, I'm sure that's always a pipe dream, though.
Yeah, but man,
Surely
like, they
you
have the
can't
military
do that.
capability.
They have the military capability, but again, this requires the will of the people, surely, at some point. And you can't, there's no way that an openly hostile Arabic population is going to accept those kinds of governments. I'm sure that they have been trying to do this.
Yeah,
since
but
the
that's
60s.
why they're not going to convince them to do it.
Huh?
They're not convincing them to do it.
That's what I'm saying. But like, if they install a government there, that government can only last so long. It would be rejected by the population.
Yeah, I think that is all true, but that's something that the Israeli government isn't really thinking of. They're just thinking, stick, and more stick.
Shit, man, that's crazy shit.
I honestly don't even think, I'm not sure, but I honestly don't think their Lebanese strategy is even going to work in the long term. It's one thing to go into Gaza and occupying it. It's a small place. It's with a very small population, but it's a whole another thing to de facto occupy Lebanon, whilst you have populations in Gaza and West Bank that constantly hate you too. This is...
Yeah, it can't happen. You can't do it.
What's the latest with Gaza? I know I always ask this, but what's happening in that old, Gaza Strip? Like, are they...
No, it's just the same thing as before.
So, are they still, like, attacking Gaza?
Yeah, all the time.
Really? And
They've lessened their attacks on Gaza because they're now focused more on Lebanon.
right.
But the war...
But what about
continued.
but the population of Gaza? Are they still all there? They haven't just...
Well, the ones that are still alive are still there, yeah. There's a big population that's dead now.
Jesus.
Yeah, but they haven't moved on. They've stayed.
Yeah, well, they've stayed because one thing, a lot of people won't accept them anywhere, and
Really? Well,
Peter Dutton just came out and said,
Well,
yeah,
yeah,
like it's not just him. No one wants to accept them.
I thought I'm thinking like Pakistan and whatnot.
No, they're not accepting
why
them
would
because
Pakistan
of
want 'em?
ethnic. Well, not Pakistan, but like Egypt and
There's heaps. Do you know how many there are in is it Jordan or
I will
Egypt?
never forget
or
that
there's
as long as I
heaps.
live when we went into the finance minister's office and there was all these complicated economic equations on this big whiteboard, and in the center of all of it was just the words, too many people.
Where was that?
in the Ministry of Finance of Pakistan.
Okay,
That's
well,
their central problem.
okay,
They
maybe
have too many
maybe
people.
Pakistan.
They don't need more.
Yeah, maybe
people.
Pakistan's a bad example, but there's a lot of Palestinians in Jordan. And,
yeah, they are, but
Yeah,
they don't
they
want to
don't want
accept
any
them
more.
because
Right.
it's gonna it's just aiding ethnic cleansing.
Yeah, so that Jesus, yeah, so they just want to, but what is Israel's ultimate goal with Gaza? I suppose.
To occupy it and ensure that the population remains,
Docile.
peaceful,
Mm.
docile, and if they ever do start messing, then they kill them further.
Mm.
And also, that doesn't mean that they're now like Israelis or anything. They've created an apartheid state. You can see the exact thing in West Bank, which is they've occupied the area, but they don't give them it's kind of like a camp.
But is Hamas still the official leaders of Palestine or whatnot?
Yeah, because what else is going to happen? While you're dropping 3,000 tons of bombs, you think there's going to be like a renaissance over there where like new political leaders would emerge of
like a
non-violent
like
Gandhians are going to start emerging.
yeah,
out
like
of
a
that?
French Revolution, but with less cheese.
No, dude. Hamas is still in
Much
control.
less cheese.
That's whack.
Yeah, it is.
And now it seems quite crazy to engage with
This
Lebanon.
is a big problem for us, by the way, in Australia. We have a huge Lebanese population. If you think that this,
Don't have to tell us. Don't have to tell him.
Oh, I'm aware.
Yeah,
and it's not just the Muslims, bro. Even the Lebanese Christians. This is gonna be.
I can't imagine they'd be
Lebanon.
into. What is the support
many-
for Hezbollah?
Look, man. I don't want to call out people, but I've got Lebanese Christians on my social media. People that aren't Muslims, and all of their stories are solidarity with Beirut.
The pro Hezbollah.
Well, again, these
Nah, they're
the
just
weird
pro
thing.
Lebanese.
They're pro not being bombed by Israel, which I
Mm.
think can be reasonable.
Another terrorist reporter to my left. No, I'm joking. I'm joking. It is pretty wild though.
The federal
because
police, Peter Dutton has said that you need to arrest people that were waving Hezbollah flags at the rallies in Melbourne and Sydney. Albo and Labour Party is saying the same thing. It's like, yeah, go for it. And the federal police is saying, for what? And it was like, what do you
Waving the
mean?
flag,
It's like
you
waving
know?
the flag.
Come
It's a
on.
crime. And they're like, we can't prosecute them for that.
And on top of that, that's something that would fly in Sydney. It's never going to fly in Melbourne. Melbourne is the Lebanon of Australia. They're not going to handle it. They're not going to put up with it. They don't. Melbourne loves a good protest.
They do.
Melbourne loves standing up to police authority.
yeah,
It's not a very Sydney thing. Because we're a convict colony. We're used to
Yeah.
cops just being like, right, in yourself for the night.
Yeah.
We stay up a little bit longer in front of the bonfire. All right, 5 more minutes.
yeah.
We're used to that.
Sweet. Yeah.
Sweet fate.
It is. Do you bring the marshmallows? You forgot him. Oh, for fuck's sake. It is very strange
I
though.
left him in London.
Wait, that's why I got brought over here. That's why I stole them, innit? It is strange though, because of social media and such a globalized world, this is like one of the unperceived downfalls, or not downfalls, but like results of multiculturalism, which never would have, you know what I mean? Where it's like, well, there's going to be huge reactions in multicultural societies when like their homeland on either side, there's going to be like. There's going to be,
this could be,
which didn't used to happen as much, but I think it was just because the coverage now is like people have iPhones and they are, you know what I mean? There's so
everyone's
much
tuned in.
information available, back in the day, it seemed like the world was a lot further away, You know, it seemed like these places, the world didn't seem so small. Whereas now it's like, it is,
Very small.
it's so small. So there's like all these sort of conflicts are you know, in the West because
literally in your face.
yeah, because of the sort of like
TikTok.
expats or whatever
Yeah.
and immigrants and all that. So it's like it's crazy. It's
Yeah.
crazy. I didn't even
And
know
then
about
there's the third escalation, because now you've left no room for de-escalation. So this is going to get bad, and this is going to be a long war, the Lebanese war too. This is going to last way longer than the Gaza war would. And then
Does
now we don't
Lebanon
even
have a nuclear weapon?
no, they don't have nuclear.
It's so small. There's no room.
Exactly.
Yeah,
No, it's just
Stupid country.
it is small.
Figure out new.
But Lebanon's always. Sorry, I'll let you. Yeah, go on.
it's the possibility of Iran getting involved. So Iran could potentially send their own fighters to Lebanon
Dang.
to fight against Israel, which would be a massive escalation. This could be like a Vietnam type thing, which will last for years. And the worst case scenario is, which Israel is desperately wanting, is an all-out war with Iran.
Who's wanting that?
Israel.
Why?
Because they think they can take them out. They're like gung-ho. It's like a really right-wing government that's just like, we can take them all.
Right.
We can take them all. Bring it
I
on.
feel like Iran is, you know, a heavier player than Lebanon.
Yeah, dude, they might have nukes.
And they believe in the word of God. That's for sure, right? Like they were like, remember that pod you explained the history of
and they have a very organized and a motivated army. People assume that Iran is like, everyone's against the government and it's going to be like, no, dude, we've seen from the Iraq-Iran war of like what Iran is capable of.
Are they like way richer than Pakistan?
Not way richer, but yes, richer.
Right.
They are like
Far out.
they've got a lot of oil.
Yeah.
What
They've
keeps
got
them going?
Yeah.
So that's actually another reason. Most countries aren't able to.
So they're not
find
environmentalists, is what you're
Nah, they're not into that.
Yeah.
Most countries aren't able to fight long sustained wars because most countries don't have indigenous oil resources.
Yeah.
But when it comes to countries like Russia, Iran, when they start fighting, they could go for indefinite.
Does Lebanon have oil? No. It's a coastal country. It's really, it seems bizarre to hear that like Israel's at war with Lebanon, because I think of them as being two kind of moderate, quite westernized Middle Eastern countries.
I like both the hummus brands.
Huh?
I like both the hummus brands.
Yeah, they both
And
have
it
yummy
does.
hummus.
This is a big problem. For
It is. That's the real war. I didn't know about the Hezbollah thing though. That's interesting that they're in Lebanon, because Lebanon is quite a. I know that they say this is like oppressive government. Because Lebanon's been at war constantly, right? They've always had fighting. They've always had oppressive governments.
Well, there was
and
a
stuff.
civil war in the 70s.
But I think of them even in regard like keeping that in mind. I still think of them as like quite a westernized sort of reasonably. What's the word? I don't know, tolerant or what's the word I'm looking for? There's a lot of personal freedoms. Am I wrong?
No, you're right. It is
Yes.
one of the more modern parts of the Middle
Yeah.
East. Sure, yeah.
That's what Anthony Bourdain would lead me to believe. But
Damn.
I've done my research. But
Yeah, he has. He's
The
got
parts
a
of Lebanon are
geographical knowledge
conservative
of the
too.
world.
all through Anthony Bourdain.
Yeah.
Parts of Lebanon are
Tour of the
conservative too.
Tashbach.
Sorry.
Parts of Lebanon are conservative. But you're right. As a
Right.
general rule,
Yeah.
Lebanon...
They
Because
don't.
because half the population is even Muslim.
Yeah, exactly. But they still don't have like freedom of press, right? They still lock you up if you pay out the government.
Yeah, but like I'm bloody terrified right now. So do we have it?
Well, you want to go in
When-
this? You want to get in the streets with your Hezbollah flag?
I'm not saying that, but I want to speak my mind, and I'm afraid of Peter Dutton. Dude, Peter Dutton hates anyone that's slightly pro-Palestinian. Like,
Yeah.
that man's like, what are you doing? Like, cancel your visa. And I was like, but I'm a citizen. He's like, well, cancel it.
Damn.
Cancel.
One more word out of you.
One more word out of
He
you.
really does give off that vibe of one of those dads being like, that's it.
Yeah.
Back to Winnipeg.
Yeah.
And I know
How
Elbow's going to...
scary would it be being his son that may or may not have had a huge quantity of coke?
Yeah, we know which way that's probably leading.
And I have no faith in Albo to defend me. Just like, Albo would be like, Well, if Peter Dutton is saying he's a threat, then he is a threat. Just vote for me next time.
So you think it's like we're in a censorship hellhole ourselves?
Well, we're not in a censorship hellhole, but I'm just saying, like, we're not as free as we'd like to believe it. We're like, it's like Brave New World where everyone thinks they're free.
yeah, but at what point, like, there has to be a level, right?
Yeah.
Well, what has to be a level?
Well, there has to be some. It is kind of concerning if people flying Hezbollah flags in the streets of Australia. I would say,
Yeah.
Do you believe in the First Amendment or no?
we don't have one.
So no.
So no is your answer.
Well, I think
then
there's,
that's better.
No, I think there's I don't know. I mean,
okay, this is the stuff that's like getting really risky now. But why can't we? Okay, let's look at the basics.
it's like the same thing with
Why
like a
can't we
Nazi
fly
flag.
the flags?
It's like a Nazi flag or whatever. There's
Okay.
hate
Why
crimes.
why can't we fly the flag? It's because the Australian government has designated Hezbollah as a terrorist organization.
Sure. Yeah.
That's the reason. Why have they designated Hezbollah as a terrorist organization? Because Israel asked them to do so because of certain attacks that happened on Israel.
Yeah.
And we did that.
Yeah.
So now a person in Australia will go to jail because the Israeli government told Australia at one point to designate a group as a terrorist group, which Australia did without a lot of protest because they wanted to keep cordial relations with Israel. And now this guy has to go to jail.
Think about it.
Yeah. I mean, there's just so many squiggly lines in that flag. There's that many. It's like, yeah. There's a. With the Arabic writing, it's like when it's like, when it's like sometimes it's a small amount. It's like, yeah, it makes sense. But the ones where it's like,
Yeah,
it's like so
it's a
big.
flag.
But
A page from a book.
But I definitely do agree that if I was organizing a protest, I'd be like, just stick to the Lebanese flag.
I think it's fine. Yeah. But I
I
get what
would
you're saying. It gets
definitely say
dicey. It gets dicey. I mean, I understand what you're saying, and it is that look. It is a philosophy. It's like one man's freedom fighter is another man's, and one man's terrorist group is another man's freedom fighter, and it's like,
what if for some reason tomorrow Trump wins the election, Trumpist Republican Party gets designated as not a great party, and someone comes out with a Republican flag, are we going to put them in jail?
Yeah, that's where it gets
that
like
would never happen because the Republican Party is a white Christian party, and we have to accept this fact as well.
Yeah,
Yeah, but a
that's
Nazi
true.
flag, you get in jail.
Is swastika?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It happens.
I
Yeah.
would, in my view, if someone was
I just
doing
don't understand
that,
why
I don't
everyone
think
gets
those
so
are grounds to
upset
put
about
someone in jail.
flags.
Sorry,
Exactly.
I
sorry.
just don't understand why people get so upset about
Yeah,
flags.
well, that's what
Exactly.
it represents.
And I would.
Yeah, it's what it represents, but it's just this thing of like, I don't know, surely you've...
But how do you know?
I guess it's all or
you've got
nothing.
bills to pay, there's other things you should be
the
worried
problem
about.
is the problem with this is what it represents is the person that's holding the flag. You don't know what that flag represents to them. You know what
Yeah.
it represents to you,
Yeah,
and it makes you feel uncomfortable. So you're like, put him in jail.
yeah, but if you're gonna, it's
Now,
it's
if
really
a
all or
person-
nothing. It's all or nothing. You either allow every flag or sort of have restrictions.
You allow every flag, but that doesn't mean you allow people to commit acts of terrorism.
Yeah, I mean,
That is my view.
Yeah, I mean,
feel
is Hamas-
even if
is
it's
a-
a Nazi flag, if you're with a Nazi flag, I don't think that's grounds enough to put you in jail. But if you start acting on Nazi beliefs that
Right.
are illegal, then you should go to jail.
yeah, I mean, every flag is going to be, not every flag, but like a lot of flags are, someone will be offended by it, right?
And like, okay,
You know?
if someone rocks like
I
an
mean, some
old
people-
Viking flag,
Yeah,
are you going to put them in jail?
yeah, it's true.
Like they were literally raping and pillaging all of Europe.
I mean,
are you
that's-
going to put someone in jail?
Yeah.
Because how do you
Somebody
know
do
what that
something.
flag means to them?
Yeah, but there's probably also like a statute of limitations with some flags. Like if it was like 1,000 years ago, it's like, I don't think the Vikings are coming back.
It's dictatorial. It's like what I'm thinking, what this flag means to me, I'm going to assume it means that to everyone, and hence you're going to go to jail.
Yeah, but you can make some. Yeah, I don't know. It gets
Like,
it gets
it's the
dicey
same-
because
it's the
a
same thing
certain
with-
flag does have connotations. Like if it's like
Like in the U.S. when they raised those flags, the Civil War flags. What are those? Like
the
Confederate?
Confederate. Yeah. And now
Yeah.
that yeah.
Which is, it's a flag for a political organization that was literally keeping people as slaves.
Sure.
Now, but if someone in like Tennessee is holding that flag, maybe that's what that means to them, that they want slavery back again.
I get what you're
but
saying,
maybe
though.
it doesn't.
I get what you're saying.
Maybe it means some cultural representation.
That's true. And that in that case, that is the case.
So
for a
now,
lot of
if
those
they're
people.
lynching black people, you put them in jail and you try them. But if they're holding a flag, you look away.
I mean, it's a lot more of a like free perspective. It's just pure freedom because it's like you have the freedom to believe whatever you want and
You have
just,
the freedom to believe whatever you want because we're not in the business of thought control.
Yeah.
You don't have the freedom to do everything.
True. I mean, look, these days, and also the way the flags are so politicized now. I mean, even like, Israeli flag, Palestinian flags, they're political
implements.
They're political like gestures now. They're not. You know what I mean? But then again,
it's like these assumptions.
They always are. Like a flag has always been a political.
I suppose so.
The government always makes you play in the parameters that they've defined. Like things like from river to the sea means genocide. Not to many people it doesn't. To many people it means from river to the sea there will be justice.
Right.
Because you think it means genocide. You think everyone that's saying it is actively asking for the extermination of all Jews.
Yeah.
That is not true.
Yeah.
This is dictatorial behavior.
Look, you're making a pretty good point. Goddamn commies.
But like now what I've said is obviously like I could go to jail for it.
No, I don't think so. I think like I can understand where it might get dicey where if someone has to it's a philosophical question because it's like one man's freedom fighter is another man's terrorist, and it's like I suppose you have to stand by what your government qualifies as a terrorist organization, and the terrorist organization flag represents what the terrorist organization represents. But then a lot of people are just like the American flag's a terrorist flag. They've killed a lot of people in the name of that flag. So it's
and then what if in some other country, let's say in China, they start arresting people because they're holding an American flag?
Yeah. Would they do that in China?
I mean, if we are doing it, we're the freest of them all, as you say. Why
yes, that's right. Never forget
a
it.
repressive communist party want to do it?
Why wouldn't they do it?
Yeah, why wouldn't they do it?
Exactly.
We are the freest of them all, and we're doing it.
Yeah.
That's weird now that I'm thinking about it.
It's not
so
that
much passion put behind meanings that no one shares. Isn't that really strange?
I mean, people just feel threatened. So if they feel threatened and have the power to silence a threat, then they'll do it.
Yeah, but dude, like for those people, Israel threatens them.
Yeah, that's true.
It's the same thing.
Yeah. It's just different sides.
You just have to put yourself in the other person's shoes.
It's definitely true, though. You do look at certain flags and they give you good or bad vibes, don't they? Totally.
I mean, it depends who you are, I guess.
It depends who you are, but everybody is just looking at that symbol.
Yeah.
And then they're creating an entire story in their head based off of this one emblem.
I mean, Peter Dutton obviously sees his country as like a Christian Western country, and when he's freaking out that he's seeing that like native population are supporting like sort of the other and what he considers the enemy. That's really
it. No, I get it.
Yeah.
I don't agree with that.
Sure.
I think that Dutton purely just looks at it in political terms.
No, he doesn't. I think Mislav is absolutely right.
That's how
Jordan
sees it that way. He sees it that way.
Dutton looks at it.
And I don't. Yeah.
He's appalled by the fact that in his own country, a Western Christian country, how dare people go and sympathize with the other side? It makes no sense to him. He thinks that they're all terrorist sympathizers. And something needs to be done about it. It's not on.
Yeah, but I can't reckon he'd be wasting his breath as opposition leader about it unless he thought there was some gain in talking about it.
Who knows? He gets the support of the the support of the Jew. Dude, you know what I will say? This is an interesting point, and we'll switch to the next segment as an addendum to this. Israel is desperate for Trump to get elected. Right?
Why?
Because they think that Trump will be more allowing and sympathetic of the of the war and everything, right? So they're really trying hard for Kamala not to get elected. This is what I would say to them, and I will explain why I'm saying this. Israel's worst nightmare would be if Kamala loses the election. Let me explain to you. This is something that I recently thought about, and anyways, I did some research. Someone was talking so. If you look at both the Republican and the Democratic Party, right? So you have the neoconservatives in the Democratic Party, which are your Bidens, your Kamalas, your Obamas, right? These are the people that fall into the as some people would call it center left or whatever, but they're neocons. These are the people that believe in the state of Israel has the absolute right to exist. They believe that, like, anything that is required to pursue this, we shall support. They also happen to believe that, Ukraine should keep fighting with Russians till the last man because it represents whatever. Then you have the mirror image of that in the Republican Party. You have like your Lindsey Grahams, your Mitt Romneys, the old neocon style Republicans that have the same exact view. Throughout history, Americans have just been switching in between these two people, so you haven't had a lot of foreign policy disagreements. Trump, on the other hand, happens to agree with Israel, but...
Wait a second, was FDR a neocon?
Didn't exist back then. The frame wasn't there.
Right.
So the Trump side of politics, they don't necessarily agree with this framework as well. That's why they're against the Ukraine thing. And some of them might support Israel for cultural reasons, for Christian nationalist reasons, but they don't support Israel as they don't support the U.S. funding Israel for their forever wars in the Middle East.
Yeah, they're populists, right?
On the same side, on the Democratic side, you have the progressives that feel the same way. They're not for Israel. Now, the Democratic Party has created a stranglehold in the neoconservatives to ensure that progressive side never comes to power or has even influence in the circles.
Like your what's his name's?
Like your Bernie Sanders.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly,
So they've rigged the system so that Bernie Sanders doesn't come into it. The Republicans had done the same thing, but Trump was such a force of nature that he overtook them. So now you have these other views that are not for forever wars that are permeating into the Republican Party. My prediction is that if Kamala loses the election, the same progressive voices will find room on the decision-making table. Because the Democrats are like, okay, we lost. We ran the campaign as we wanted to. I guess if we continue to do this, we might lose the next election as well. So progressive voices, all right, say where we're going wrong.
Right.
And they'll talk about Israel. And so for the first time in history, I'm saying there's a possibility that if Kamala loses the election, that one side of the politics, which is a Democratic side, might become anti-Israel.
Wow. Yeah.
Do any of you buy this? Jordan, do you buy this theory?
I buy it.
I'm saying that I will say this. It's a possibility. It's possible.
Do you think if Kamala loses, the progressives aren't going to get greater decision-making powers in the Democratic Party?
Not necessarily.
They'll still keep a hold of it. What if they keep losing?
Then
what if they keep losing?
At some point, they will have to.
Then more and more so, you'd think so.
What if they keep losing?
Yeah, then it would definitely. You have to make changes. You can't do the same fucking thing.
Because at the end of the day,
Why?
no matter how much
That's the
they
definition of insanity.
no matter how much they love Israel and how much they love, their own version, if they keep losing elections, they're going to have to change it and they're going to be open to newer ideas.
It's just, the lobby's so powerful, Ali.
It is, but it won't
And
be
I think
forever.
that, honestly, they just think okay, we just need to make a few aesthetic changes.
But
we need to make some policy changes to cancel out those people.
Right,
So
maybe.
You have
the
to
other thing is
admit-
as well, look, yeah, I'm the first to admit this war, in terms of its interest for Zoomers and people across the world, especially in America, had much longer legs than I thought it would. But it can't last forever. People are going to get bored of it like they got bored of the Ukraine. Like, it will fizzle out.
Until the next event happens. So what I'm saying is, if you look at, you're right.
Such a bad way, such a fucked way about looking at war. Like, I'm bored of this war. It's like,
But it's true, right?
I suppose.
But
I mean, let's be real. It's had a long season. A very, very good season. But this is showbiz.
It's not.
People want
though.
something new,
It's not.
fresh,
It's not.
bold.
It's not showbiz.
I'm looking at the Congo.
Oh God.
Stop it. Listen, you have to admit, Jordan, I am not doubting or in disagreement with you when you say that the Israel lobby has an absolute stranglehold of all of U.S. politics. But you have to admit that their influence is on a downward trajectory.
Yes.
20 years ago, it was extremely easy for every politician in America to be in line with them. And that's changing. this current cycle of violence post October 7th has increased the amount of dissatisfaction that there is in the U.S., where to the point where I think 35 to 40% of the population now is in blanket agreement with Israel's policies.
Yes,
Really?
but how many people will change their vote for it?
Maybe not now. But is Israel in it for the next 10 years, or is Israel in it for the next 100 years? If you're in it for the next 10 years, what you're doing is exactly right. If you're in it for the long term, you're going to screw yourself up. Because at the end of the day, the only thing that Israel has that gives them that ultimate insurance is the ironclad support of the U.S. If for some reason in 20 years, 30 years, one party, Democrat, becomes pro-Palestinian and one party, Republican, becomes pro-Israeli, then it's a coin toss every time there's an election.
Now, that's true. Ali, don't you think that the Israeli government is well aware of this dynamic?
I think they're underestimating it. I think the current Israeli government is not even thinking about this. I think there's Israeli politicians that are thinking about this for sure, but the current Israeli government is just like, it's all testosterone.
All testosterone, and also I suppose they are in the thick of a conflict. So that is their main focus. I'll say, man, if I was the Israeli government and I was looking at that dynamic and I was thinking about it over the next 100 years, because you're right, if you're thinking about it over the next 100 years, it's a completely different game. I'd be doing exactly what I'm doing now if I was the Israeli government. Exactly what I'm doing now. I'd be trying to make as much of a dead zone as possible around everything else. I'd be trying to get Trump elected so that I would have more of a permission to make more of a dead zone. It makes a lot of sense from that perspective to be doing as much as you can now, especially because, as you're saying, I don't think that this is a next term problem, especially because if the Democrats lose, it is not going to be by a wide margin. On top of that, I'd be playing that maybe, and the interest in public support will change, other things will happen. This is a long-term thought. Very long-term.
I think it is.
Multiple
I think
terms.
it is, but they're basing all of their long-term projections on what is the ground reality today. It might not be. I think they need to set some favorable terms. They can't just it can't be all sticks. There needs to be carrots at some point.
From Israel's perspective?
Yeah.
Maybe. The other thing is that when you think about the region and what you're saying, that they're losing more and more political support, that stalemate that they've been able to hold for the last 50 years, they've realized that there is an expiry date on that. And they got to do something.
And the other thing...
And what they're doing now, logically, makes a lot of sense from their perspective.
Except for they're not taking into account the future Cold War. So, in about the Cold War...
It gets better. Are you talking about China?
The Cold War between U.S. and China is still in its infancy. We could reach a point in maybe 20 years, 30 years, where it mirrors what was the case during the Soviet Union, which means that Israel will become a proxy ground. So the Chinese will support the Arabs and the Muslims, and the U.S. will support Israel, right? And if the U.S. has one party that is not super enthusiastic about supporting Israel, I wouldn't be safe in that situation. I'd want to create regional harmony if I was Israel. I do not want to have one really strong friend.
Bit late for that. That's not an option for them anymore.
I don't think it is.
I don't think so.
I think end the occupation and you might be able to reach it.
In the occupation?
Yeah. Well, not of Israel proper. I mean, West Bank and Gaza. I'm not saying, go back to Europe or anything. You know what I'm talking about, right? Israel
you're saying give them autonomy in West Bank and Gaza. And
make Arab states responsible for some of the security considerations. And, you don't have to, let them into your country, build a wall if you have to, but reach a two-state agreement.
When's Israel's election?
Don't follow the policy of I don't have to because they're too weak. Because they're too weak right now. You don't know what's going to happen in the future. Use this opportunity.
No, that's what they're thinking, though. What? They're thinking, as you said before, that the population of the Palestinians is growing. And there will eventually become a point where they can't hold them out. Look, the four options that they have on their table, from Israel's perspective, ethnic cleansing makes the most sense from their perspective. The other ones are just, they're a huge problem for them in terms of their security. I mean, if you give them the wall and all of that, there is the looming threat constantly that there is this openly hostile population that is just beyond this wall constantly.
But that already exists. There is
Exactly.
an openly hostile population.
Exactly. So that's what they're trying to get rid
But
of.
at least it...
And then they're trying to make a dead zone around that, which, look, that makes total sense from their perspective.
To create
It's not
that dead
morally
zone...
right.
To create that dead zone, they are deading people.
Yeah.
Like, it's...
Yeah, but that's what I think.
Making
That's
a
what I think is
graveyard.
happening in their
Unalive,
head. That
yeah.
they're just kind of realizing we can't sustain what we have had for the past 50 years. Like, our political support is waning globally. On top of that, the population is increasing around us. Our neighbors, you know, we can placate them here and there, but still the hostility is there in terms of the population. I reckon that's exactly what you're saying now. You said this piece about Lebanon there. Dude, I think that they've just thought, like, while we've still got the upper hand, we've got to take full advantage of it.
Yeah, no, I get that.
That's totally what they're thinking.
No, that is absolutely what they're thinking. But I'm just saying, like, long term, I don't know if it's going to work out.
Yeah, but long term, I don't know if the other alternative is going to work out for them either.
Yeah, it's a difficult game for them, but like I said, if you create, dude, when you beat someone to submission like this, right, which is what they're doing, it's just like, we're so powerful that you have no options for resistance. You're just creating resentment that will come to front when the power balance is shifting.
Yes.
And then what's going to happen? Then we're going to go back to a very, then... I don't want to say it, but like,
unless
the
they
30s Europe might be a possibility again.
possibly, but also unless they successfully ethnically cleanse the region.
Well,
That's absolutely
they're going to
the
ethnically
game.
cleanse them.
That's their option. That is their option.
They can ethnically cleanse part of their areas. They can't ethnically cleanse all of the Middle East. There's
No.
always going to be Jordan.
Yeah.
There's always going to be Egypt.
Yeah.
There's always going to be Syria. There's
Yeah.
always going to be Lebanon.
Yeah.
And they're going to hate Israel
Yeah.
for eternity.
Yeah.
Maybe the governments don't in certain situations, but the population will hate Israel,
Which they already do.
which they already
And
do.
will,
But
regardless of what they do. That
I
is
don't,
true.
I don't agree with that.
So you reckon that
regardless
they
of
can
what they do.
build a peaceful alternative to it where Israel kind of lives in harmony with the region?
Yeah, relative harmony, sure. And now is a good time to do it. Right now, the scales are tilted so much in favor of Israel. Dude, I don't even know if these scales are going to be like that in the next year because we don't know how this insurgency in Lebanon is going to go.
Yeah, exactly. Dude, I honestly think like this is their fucking Rubicon moment.
Yeah, this is their...
But I think that
moment.
what I'm saying, I think that they've passed it. You're saying that they haven't passed it. I reckon they've done it. I reckon they've rolled the dice.
Yeah.
This is what they've got now. I don't know. Like, I just think that like
I wouldn't-
every
I
other
wouldn't
option
wanna be an
available
Israeli.
to them is like every other option available to them is not going to work out for them. Maybe the ethnic cleansing might work out for them. And I reckon
Yeah.
that that's how they're thinking about it.
They are, but I don't know if that is going to work
Neither
out
do
exactly
I
how
don't
they
think
want
it'll. I honestly, you know what I think?
Dude,
I
it's
think
going to
that
be like
honestly
a
what
South
you're
Africa
saying-
type situation.
Exactly.
And then
Yes.
eventually
Yes.
they're going to hope that some Nelson Mandela type Arab is going to come and say, okay, we're going to forgive everyone. But what if they don't get that Nelson Mandela type character?
What if they get a Malcolm X?
Yeah. I am afraid of
Well,
what
yeah,
would
no-
happen, and I'm afraid of what they would do in order for that not to happen.
Yes, but
they might end up
But
in,
Ali, what you're talking about, I think, is inevitable.
Yeah, but like, what would happen? I'm not saying this would happen, but like, what would happen if Israelis end up in the Nuremberg style trial, the exact trials where they used to hunt Nazis and put them on the stand? If Israeli politicians are on those, because the sort of remedy that you're talking about, ethnic cleansing, those are mass crimes against humanity.
Yeah, but they've been committing them for the last 60 years.
Yeah, but like
And-
right
and
now
on
they
top of
have
that-
the power scales are in their favor.
Yeah, Power scales. Look, I am saying that I think that surely analytical heads are looking at it in Israel right now and realizing we've lost. Long term, they have lost no matter what happens. That's what I think's going on here. I think that what you're talking about is right. Like, but the question is, it's only a matter of time.
Well, they've got the nuclear weapons, and which makes me think that they might be the second country on Earth that will use those nuclear weapons.
Maybe.
Because they will have grounds
Jesus.
to use them if they're fully threatened.
But the thing is, I don't think that thinking about it from that angle that it'll be like this military conflict that destroys Israel. I'm thinking that it's just this thing of like, there's too many of them, there's not enough of us.
Death by
and
a
it will
thousand
come
cuts.
like sort of what you're talking about, but like a more extreme version, I guess, of South Africa, where it's just like they'll still have economic superiority or whatever, but their political power would have been greatly reduced. And as a result of that, like all of their influence will be gone. They must see that writing on the wall. But again, like this is all if you're thinking about it over the next century.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Well, look, man. We'll see how this occupation of Lebanon goes. But this is the scales are like this is level 2. Level 1 was Gaza. Actually, level 2 is West Bank. Level 3 is
Gaza.
Lebanon.
Yeah, Lebanon.
And level 4 is Iran.
Damn.
Iran, eh?
Yeah, man. Look, it's yeah. Now that I think about it, they're just speed running it. I think they've just thought like we just can't keep the limbo going.
Yeah, and I guess
Something needs
they've
to
accepted.
give, and they've just figured out like now we've got to do it.
Yeah, we're the bad guys. All right. We're the bad.
I think
guys.
that's it. I think that's what they're thinking. Yeah, we're the bad guys. All right, now what? That's what's going on.
Damn. All right. Let's switch some gears.
Pilot.
No. Oh, actually,
we can't.
the Steak sent us. So Ellen came up with a special, and the special's been getting roasted. So the Steak sent us a video to watch and react live on the pod. I haven't watched it myself, so let's do that.
She's back. I'm going to be Googling some of this stuff, I'll tell you that much. Oh, like a stand-up special.
Yeah, but like it's like a 1-minute clip. I don't exactly know why we're reacting to this.
Why not?
Isn't it amazing that Ellen hasn't aged at all? She always looked like a 60-year-old woman.
Yeah, she did.
It's pretty...
All right, you got your headphones on?
60-year-old elf. Not
Yeah.
a woman, elf.
Yeah.
Nah,
Can't
not coming
hear
in. I'm not hearing it.
Yeah, me neither. It's coming. It's not coming through the thing. I think.
Oh, wait. I know why.
Far out.
Sorry, once.
Really makes you think.
It does, doesn't it?
Makes you think.
All right.
It does, doesn't it? It does, doesn't
Makes
it?
you
Nice.
Nice.
It does, doesn't it?
This is helpful.
And I'm impatient and demanding, direct. I'm a strong impatient,
This is so much better than what we had Awesome.
Hold on, I can figure this out. Okay, the audio is fine.
It is fun. Let me try and fix that.
Maybe we should log off and log on.
We could log
Let
off
me
and
try
log
and fix
on. I mean, we've got half.
I think that should fix it.
Okay,
What about now?
let's
Turn
see.
it up,
Yeah.
Ali. I mean, Miss Love. You know, one of you do it. Now it's nothing. Now there's no audio.
You know, there's no audio. It's good.
It's working.
It's good.
It's
We
fine.
fixed it. Good job, Ali. We fixed it. He fixed it.
That's my boy.
All right, there you go. God.
So I'm doing a long-winded video about this.
Yeah.
Ali, just give me a quick breakdown.
I can't
Give me a
wait.
quick breakdown before we begin. What do you think Labor and Liberal represent? As in, what do you think their constituencies
Hey, say
are?
Labour right.
Labour.
No.
Labour.
Labour.
Well, I don't think you need to say anything after that. The tone speaks for
Yeah,
itself.
exactly.
In actuality, or like in actuality, I think Liberal Party represents business
Uh-huh.
and
Okay.
capital,
Uh-huh.
and Labor represents labor and small scale capital.
Small scale. What's small scale capital?
Like technically, Labor represents small business owners a lot better than Liberals do.
Technically, yeah, but I would imagine that their constituency is probably Liberal.
No, it's not. That's what I'm saying. Like, that's what they actually. But like in actuality, I guess small business owners, and who big business owners, tradies, they're all for Liberal,
Mhm.
and the remaining Labor is, I guess, for Labor.
The rest is for Labor.
Yeah.
And the scum. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that the scum represent vote for Labor.
What's the scum?
You know, just like houses.
Oh,
and,
yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
good
the,
on
the
'em.
grit.
Yeah,
The
God bless
gristle
them.
of Australia.
God bless them.
Yeah, the salt of the earth.
Yeah.
That's their constituency. Now, what do you think the Greens and One Nation's constituency is? What do you think their constituency is?
Greens,
Uh-huh.
young people from affluent families that live in inner city,
Uh-huh. What do you reckon One Nation is?
regional folks, low income.
Regional folk, low income. What do you reckon Independent is?
Oh, that could mean anything, and depending on where you are.
Depending on where you are.
Good answers. They're good
They're
answers.
not bad answers. They're not
Very
bad
good.
answers. I'll tell you this, though. I was saying this on the Up Late podcast. This is a little preview. One Nation voters are actually quite affluent.
No,
They're not
way.
extremely affluent, but they'd be making anywhere between like 80 to 120K a year. Affluent isn't the right word, but they're not poor. They're not poor. They're thoroughly middle class. The best way to indicate if you're going to be voting for One Nation, this is a very good tell of a One Nation voter.
If you're a Queenslander.
Yes. Precisely.
Actually?
Well, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
But I mean, look, there's also the regional aspects that come into this, yes. But economically, very good indicator of a One Nation voter is if you started a small business and it failed. Now, think about this. What One Nation represents is sort of the broken dreams of the Liberal Party. The Liberal Party is all about you can go out, you can enterprise, you can make yourself a millionaire. That's the Australia that we want. They went out and tried it. It didn't work. And it's not because of them. It's because of migrants and the government. The government and migrants. That's the reason that their small business failed. It wasn't the fact that starting up a news agency in 2020 is probably not a great idea when everything's online.
Oh, God.
It's not that. It's the government's regulations.
I do miss those. I miss news agents, man. Anyway.
And the Greens, very interesting.
Disgruntled Labor.
Yes, but really what they represent is the dream of Labor fulfilled.
Utopia is here.
Utopia is here.
Ah.
That's what it represents. Now, dig this. Every time I shit on the Greens, and I've noticed this pattern, every single time I shit on them, there is a bunch of Scandinavians and a bunch of Central Europeans that write to me saying we have this exact knob in our society and they're doing the exact same thing to our society. They recognise it. Now, every time you ever hear Greens voters, what do they always say? They always say, Norway is just this wonderful utopia. I can't really tell the difference between that and The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe. It's the same image in my head. There's just a bunch of pixies and elves there that are on like mad income. And it's true. You go to Norway, I was talking to somebody that lived there for a long time and they were saying every second person there has some bullshit job. They're just like, I'm the curator of Viking helmets from 1301 to 1302. That's what I do with my life. And it's like, so really, what do you do? And it's just like, nothing. No one pays attention to me. How much are you on? 200 grand a year. Like that is what Norway is filled with. People that basically do useless things. I've used this stat before and I'm going to be using it in the video, but I think, honestly, Ali pretty much nailed it. But really, if you look at it, the constituencies are Liberal Party is the business party, Labor is the workers' party, Greens are the not workers' party. They don't have jobs that are really linked to the economy at all. It's a lot of things in arts, it's a lot of physiotherapists, it's a lot of things that are sort of not particularly useful to the economy as we know it, right? So, really what happened, this is amazing. This was all in this book called Whitlam's Children that I was reading. Gough Whitlam comes in. He gives Australia one of the greatest social security safety nets on earth, which is another way of saying it's really hard to fail in Australia. The way that you fail in Australia is in like, I'm talking bottom out. You bottom out in Australia. That is a hard thing to do. you usually have to have a mental illness or be mentally handicapped. That's the way that you seep through. There's like DV victims and things like that, sure, but there are a lot of nets to catch these people. Usually the reason that you can't do this because there's so many government and non-government programs that are just like, we'll get you a house, we'll get you bills paid. These things exist. So the reason that you can't get them most of the time is because of some mental illness or something like that. So it is very, very hard in this country, comparatively to the rest of the world, to fail. Really, we are one of those countries that we're always looking up to saying, oh, we're not Norway, we're not Central Europe. We're very, very close to those countries. On top of that, you got Keating that came in the 80s and he, made us a global economy. So really, the sky's the limit in terms of success in this country. So we've got an incredible social safety net catching everyone. We've also just got this incredible economy. You can do whatever you want in this society, really. Like, there's very few limitations. In terms of, when we look at the business indexes of where the best places in the world to do business are, Australia's up there with your Singapores and your Saudi Arabias. So we've got this weird mix of being like pretty much the same as Norway, but also pretty much the same as the UAE. We've got both of those things running. What that has led to is 30% of the population that, let's be honest, pretty useless. They don't do much for the economy. Businesses run the economy. Look, I have my gripes with the business party, but you can't say that business isn't a productive, integral part of the economy, right? Like, it is necessary. The Labor Party represents workers. Workers are very important to the economy, but it has been organised in such a way that 30% of the population has pretty damn good lives and they don't have many hurdles. So really they're kind of left in this limbo of not being talented enough to go into the ruling elite. They're not talented enough to go there. They weren't born in the ruling elite. They're not good enough to get to the ruling elite. So they're kind of just in this stasis. They're not going to go to the Workers' Party. No, of course not. That's not going to happen either. So think about it. What do Greens voters really need from politics? Because if you think about what politics is for a second, politics is the battlefield where you decide who gets what. That's what politics is. So a good example of this might be, say, when the Labor Party made businesses pay the $131 billion in wages that they owe their workers, that the Liberal Party put all these loopholes in so they don't have to pay them the $130 billion. Now, if you're a worker, as in a true worker, that's petrol for you. That's groceries. That means something, that $131 billion. If you're a business owner, that would suck ass having to pay $131 billion. That would be shit. That would really hurt.
Not good.
What?
Not good.
It's not good. You've got shareholders you've got to speak to. There's a bottom line that you're looking at. You're thinking, fuck, we can't expand this year. There's a lot of problems with that $131 billion not going to you. These are material parties. They do something for their constituencies. They have to do something for their constituencies. Otherwise, they lose. They lose their base. They have to keep delivering for their base. What do the Greens have to do? What does One Nation have to do materially for these people that no matter what happens, that $131 billion, whether it goes to the workers or it goes to business, doesn't affect them on their 150K. Doesn't affect them on their 80 to 120K.
You're saying that they're just protecting the useless of society?
They're protecting the... No, they're not even protecting the useless of the... They are fine. Like, and in fact, the way that the economy has been set up, the way that the political structure has been set up, they're just there. You know what they are? They're a human externality. They're not useful to society anymore. So what are these parties represent? Are they delivering anything? Do they have to deliver anything? I think all they have to deliver these people is emotional needs. They don't have to deliver them material needs. They don't have to deliver them things in the real world. What the One Nation has to deliver its voters is to just reaffirm their grievances over and over again. Yes, the reason that your business failed is because of migrants. It is because the government's hard on your back. What you have to deliver to the Greens, because again, they are from the working class, they have to deliver a sense of intellectual and moral superiority. That's all they have to deliver. And they have to keep delivering that to them all the time. That is the only thing they need to deliver. Now, if you go back and see what Adam Bant, so really what I'm saying is that everything that they look up to, like if they're just sitting there and just being like, yeah, we like penalty rates. Yeah, we believe that climate change is like bad. The environment's bad. Social justice is awesome. All these things are fashion to them. Like it doesn't, if penalty rates go or don't, it doesn't affect them at all. It's purely a fashion. It's a status symbol to these people in this society to have the same beliefs as the class. Really, the only thing that materially might not benefit them, okay, maybe if they did walk into their graphic design shop with a Nazi swastika on or something like that, they might get fired. They really just have to uphold what is fashionably moral at the time. That's all they have to keep delivering. So really what you're delivering when you get your little Greens logo on the back of your car, what you are saying to everyone is, I'm better than you. I am a morally and intellectually smarter person than you.
It's an interesting point.
What?
What you're saying?
You reckon?
Yeah. It is.
Yeah, it seems on point.
No, it is. It does. It's like kind of...
Yeah, for sure.
It's an interesting point.
So what really got me onto this was when I was reading Whitlam's Children. You go back and you listen to Adam Bant, and they will talk about the fact that they still to this day think that blocking the ETS was awesome, right? Let's look at the facts of blocking the emissions trading scheme. We're talking 10 years ago when they blocked Kevin Rudd's price on carbon. This was a price on carbon that, again, because Labor needs to deliver in the material world, the Liberals need to deliver in the material world, they had a general agreement amongst both parties, or at least a faction of the Liberal Party, at the very least, or a big faction, half of it, was agreeing, yes, okay, we need an emissions trading scheme. Now, the reason that they were able to do that is because they're saying this is a price on carbon. This means that this is now monetized, which means that you can build businesses around it. You can build industries around reducing carbon emissions. That is a material outcome that is going to happen. So you have the business community on side. You have the environmental groups on side. They're always going to pick like Friends of the Earth and stuff like that that weren't pro it. But, you know, you've got Greenpeace, WWE, you've got all these big environmental industries that were just constituencies that were like, yes, this is the way to go forward because there was broad political consensus around it. Economists were saying it's a good idea. The broad community appeal, yep, put a price on carbon. That was a very small window that was politically possible. And Kevin Rudd was going to deliver on that. They would have had huge outcomes and differences to now. Now, we wouldn't be talking about a 45% reduction if that was happening because the groundwork would have been in there. Like it would have been priced. There would have been an economy built around it. So we'd be looking at much greater reductions in carbon emissions now because you've got that in place. The Greens blocked it. And they were always saying, it's not good enough. I went back and I was reading Adam Bant's quote for why he was saying it. And he was saying, at the time, everybody was telling us that if we block the ETS, this is going to be our Australian Democrats moment. And our base is going to be so disgusted with us that they'll move away from us. And he was saying, this was not our Australian Democrats moment. Our vote went up over the long trajectory. Obviously, it just keeps going up. And he said, quote, if we passed the ETS, our constituency would have abandoned us. Now, let's think about the material outcomes of this. There's no price on carbon. There will never be a price on carbon because the issue has become so toxic that you can't even bring it up anymore. That's gone. Not only that, the Liberals were in for the next 10 years fighting this climate war. That was how they were getting in on a lot of these elections. So we got 10 years of Tory rule where they fucked the environment for another 10 years. No price on carbon's ever coming back. But in their minds, this is a win because they delivered to their constituency the feeling that whatever the majors were doing wasn't good enough. And the reason that they need to constantly keep reaffirming that the reason that the majors aren't doing enough, I think that this is the whole thing. The reason they're constantly raging against the machine is because the machine has rejected them. The machine doesn't need them. They feel that on some level. And because they can't go into the ruling class and they feel better than the working class, they've taken the you can't fire me, I quit attitude to the machine. And the way that you get that you can't fire me, I quit attitude is to constantly keep reaffirming how you get the machine, and the machine's evil and you're too pure for the machine. This is all cope for the fact that the machine has decided that they're an externality like smog out of an aluminium smelter. They're the smog out of an aluminium smelter. They're useless to the economy.
Damn.
What do you reckon?
No, I agree with you. I mean, it sounds pretty on point to me. I know like there's a lot of people that might have a different opinion, but in effect,
it's pretty spot on.
Yeah, it's
like
their whole purpose of existence is creating instability because they thrive on that.
They thrive on it.
Yeah.
And they thrive on constantly. This is the same argument they do with everything from the Reserve Bank, which again, they're just sitting there blocking Reserve Bank measures. This is people's mortgages. Again, this is like Labor and Liberal, their constituencies are pissed at this because this is their house that they're talking about. And they're sitting there saying, just go back to the RBA in the 70s for arbitrary reasons. There's no economics behind it. It's a terrible idea, but it doesn't matter. It makes their constituency feel like that they've got like a better solution, that they get it. Same thing with public housing. Same thing with a slew of environmental policy. This is how they signal to their electorate and deliver them what they want. That's how they deliver them what they want.
Damn, okay. What's the devil's advocate? Can you think of any devil's advocate?
I mean, the only thing
maybe they'd say like, don't hate the player, hate the game. Oh, this is dead.
The only thing this doesn't what do you call it?
Dead my ass.
This doesn't this doesn't like detract from his point really, but the only point I made was like, look, I think Jordan sometimes he's talking about big picture. Sometimes with the minor picture he generalizes, like the macro is right. All I was saying to Jordan was like I already said this to you anyway. All I said was like it's true. I think he's right on a broader scale, but like this isn't, you can't generalize on a lived experience. So there are just like old school Bob Brown Greens voters that are just like, they might not agree with everything the Greens do, but they agreed that
they're gone now.
Oh no, there's still some out there. Like, so, like I think there's two things. I think there's some people that don't see the sort of hypocrisy that he's talking about. They just don't see it, so they're oblivious to that. So I wouldn't personally blame them for supporting a party if they don't see that are oblivious to what's happening. And then there are just old sort of hippies that are just like, look, I think like their policies are, they don't go far enough, because there is an argument. I don't really agree with it, but there is an argument of like, it's the whole argument of a protest vote. What does it do? It creates a worse result. It creates a worse result, but it's a moral. To a lot of people, it's a moral thing where it's like, it's like I'd rather die on my knees than I'd rather die standing than on my knees. It's like, well, the result's worse.
Is that?
I'm devil's advocate.
Are you willing to die on your knees because you care passionately, or are you willing to die on your knees because you want to feel better than everyone?
I'm saying some do it, a minority do it. I would say because they're genuine. Because they're genuine.
The Bob Brown faction of Greens.
Yeah.
First of all, they're gone now. Like that faction is dead. The Greens, I think, screwed up when they moved away from they broadened their horizon to like other stuff like refugees and everything under the sun. Like they should have been an environmental lobbyist group, and every time they were asked for other opinions, they would have said like, "Sorry, we don't know," because that was the only way they could have truly served the purpose of environmentalism. By like going into all of these other...
But they still would have blocked the carbon emission in that case, because it's not good enough.
Well, but they would have had more credibility. I just think like
and
now...
perhaps, maybe not.
Well, maybe not. Why? I mean, they probably...
Yeah, maybe not, because they might not have the other incentives. If their incentive is just for environmental protection...
That's true.
They might have just agreed with it.
That's true.
Yeah, they'd just be like, the usual, we don't think this goes far enough. But, however, it's progress.
Exactly.
We'll vote for
well,
it.
that's the difference. Is like, I think that the difference is to sometimes take the L, or what you just see as the L, and be like, but then then they're not a protest party. It's this whole thing of it's like, it's almost like it is this thing. I'm not disagreeing with you, but it is this thing of like, if you don't think something good enough, is it moral to stand up against it if the result is worse?
Yeah, but what are you saying?
Well, I'm asking the question. If
But the result is worse.
yeah,
The
the
result
carbon
for-
tax.
Yeah, exactly.
Some people, a lot of Greens voters would justify it, saying it didn't go far enough. So, it's like we'll go down with the ship as opposed to
it didn't go far enough, so
Yeah,
that
yeah.
means that you scrap it, and for the next decade you do nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
In fact,
I don't
worse
think
than nothing.
I don't think it's a good
Worse than
thing.
nothing.
Yeah,
I don't think it's a good thing, but some people would say, it is. But I don't think it is.
What?
We're gonna do.
You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
What's this?
Pilot.
Oh,
You're
right.
turning violet, pilot. Anyway, that's just devil's
But
advocate.
basically, like, don't you think that is a very interesting... This honestly is the first development since Karl Marx started really nutting down on what the class divides are. I get that there was, there's always been some kind of thinker that's been thinking about classes, but really, you got to say that Karl Marx was the Jerry Seinfeld of class.
I don't know.
Change the game.
No, I agree with you.
Right? And then that what he was describing, that was the divide up until the 90s. And now the 90s has happened, and now there is this new class, which is the superfluous class that don't do anything. Now, you got to say this in capitalism's favor. What an efficient system that it can make 30% of the population redundant and that they can live a good life, like a better life than any medieval king.
Yeah. I'll pay that, yeah.
I'll tell you this.
For sure.
Most medieval kings weren't going to Vanuatu every year for their holidays. They didn't even know the place fucking existed.
Yeah.
Or going to Oasis concerts.
Going to Oasis
Yeah, paying
concerts.
$400
Yeah,
bucks
dude,
for it.
I think it beats like a guy with a lute, just a little bit.
But the question is then, I'm just curious, like, and I agree with you, and I'm curious what you think, but like, is a protest vote moral? That's the question.
Well, it can't. But hold that thought, Jordan.
Yeah,
So much pain.
Yeah. Have a. I got.
No. Stay for this. Stay for this.
Really have to pee.
Speaking of limp. All right, fellas, it's time to cut to the chase. Bedroom troubles? We've all been there, except me. And as many times as we say, doesn't this usually happen? We all know it does. Doesn't matter if you're 25 or 55. Sometimes a sausage just doesn't want to cooperate. Into Pilot. It's an online healthcare clinic for Aussie blokes. So you can skip the awkward eye contact, speak about your cock from the comfort of your couch, where we're used to talking about it, where you will probably get fucked back in the good old days of the glory days. So Pilot has evidence-based treatments that bring your sick back to its former glory with a team of professionals helping you all the way. Use code Geordie20 to save some cash. Links in the show notes. Let me just say, I have been using this. Not these ones, because these are for display. I mean, I drank some last pod, so that's
Yeah,
true. And
actually,
it was tastier than other shampoos I've had.
that fruity taste.
You can really taste the growth. And it wasn't bad either. So I suggest consuming it. Obviously, that's the first thing. But other than ingesting it, you can also put it on your hair. And, dude, it does the job. Like, I am a dandruffy boy. I am Christmas in July. I'll tell you that. I get a lot of it, and I've got to say that this has been reducing it. And that has actually helped probably in the bedroom because I don't have my girlfriend constantly screaming in the morning being like, Geordies, there's dandruff on my pillow. And that doesn't happen anymore. And so I've leveled up my confidence with science.
And you can too.
All right. Pass me my laptop. I think we're over time.
Okay, well, tell me. 'Cause,
Yeah, look, we're over time.
we did well.
Yeah, we did well. We only got through 2 segments, and we had 8.
But
So
they
I
were,
apologize.
Jesus. But they were heady.
They were heady, but make sure that you sign up to Patreon because if you don't, you won't be able to continue this remarkable
We
conversation.
continue
with us.
this when the cameras go off, ladies and gentlemen. Join us
Join us
for the
and-
VIP experience.
Audio media.